Hey, Chapel here, and today I want to address the elephant in the room regarding the current state of V-Rising. Now, looking at player numbers alone, the game has dropped off a lot, but not any more than what would be expected with most releases. But these drops are a lot more apparent than they would be in most games, and I want to talk today about the main issues that the game faces. First things first, this isn't going to be typical feedback of server settings, balance issues with things like whipple counters, or the bugs that harm the experience. While these kind of changes will make minor improvements for the more dedicated players, the biggest issues the game faces are a lot more deep-rooted, and are problems with the actual foundations of the game. The idea of this is not to hate, but to be constructive. All in all, V-Rising's already a big success, and I believe it has untapped potential it can reach if the main things harming it are considered. So let's talk about these. The reliance on players. So, with the way the game is built, it is currently very reliant on having a strong player base to keep servers alive. Now, one thing that does not rely on this is the PvE experience, which, although it doesn't have the replayability, it does provide a fun one-time experience and helps the game remain a worthy purchase for new players regardless of the popularity. The issue, however, is the health of open-world PvP servers, which need numbers in a server in order to see any kind of activity while playing. If anyone stops playing during a wipe, then it causes a snowballing effect of no one playing, because there's no one else to fight, and PvE alone has gotten repetitive from multiple playthroughs. This means the only way to keep a good number on servers is if there's more people wanting to play there than there is available slots, which in itself causes problems either through massive swings in activity or just not being able to get in. The only way to combat this is through regular wipe cycles, which leads me on to the next issue. Redundant content. Now, in the 1.0 update, many changes were made to the game with a big focus on the final zone. There is much more to do at endgame. There's huge improvements to the legendary weapon system, and the bosses are some of the best fight designs we've seen. However, when combined with quickly dying servers and regular wipes, this content will often only see a very small minority of players ever reaching it, leading to an endgame that feels empty despite there being a lot more to do here. The fact that the progress also takes so long now makes it very disheartening to reach this point in the game, only for there to be nothing happening. The progression to this point feels like a crawl even for experienced players, which leaves newer players barely having any chance of getting there. The learning curve of V-Rising is brutal. The experience that new players will typically get whilst trying to learn this game is so bad that it weeds out and puts off anyone that isn't a complete masochist. Deaths in pretty much any server are very punishing and take a lot of time out of your progress. With the game already having a ton to learn just to be able to get anywhere, this on top will make many players quit to play something else right from the get-go. This leads to anyone new falling hopelessly behind, and when then you get this combined with complicated and difficult PvP mechanics, then running into experienced players with good idea of fundamentals, movement, spell faking, and the ability to swap between a full hotbar of weapons, this makes it very difficult to get into as a new player. While this high skill floor and skill ceiling is part of what makes the game so fun for experienced players, it does not pair particularly well with the punishing nature of a survival game, which makes it too difficult to keep many of the new players from sticking around. So, with all these problems, what do I personally think is best for the game? With there being plans for another major update after a year, I think the thing the game can do is, instead of continuing to expand on the current experience, it should take a turn towards a new type of game that makes the most of the beautifully well-designed PvP mechanics and can be more sustainable without harming the experience when it's a smaller active player base. With the release of Dracula and Endgame, I think the vision feels complete and does not need to continue in the same direction, as I don't think it will bring back old players or draw in new players in the same way that the other updates have. This change of direction may sound reminiscent of the underwhelming outcome that came from Battle Royale, Stunlock's previous game. However, there are some very key differences. Battle Royale was a separate paid game that was trying to break into a genre that already had a very competitive market, and was also heavily reliant on having a healthy pool of players for the games to run. V-Rising is a much stronger IP than Battlerite. Although Battlerite had a lot of love within its small community, it was not able to break into mainstream games, and the designs of it were not enough to stand out. V-Rising has a much stronger lore and aesthetic that help it reach a wider audience and really stand out from other games. So what kind of genre could be good for V-Rising to try and branch into? Now, as much as I love playing with VARENA servers, I agree that this would be a step backwards and probably isn't the correct direction for the game. From talking to many others in the community about this, is how well the game could transition into an extraction looter with the current foundations it has. The premise of this type of game is loading into a map with a small collection of players, with the idea of getting as much loot as you can and then safely bring it home, while having a mix of PvE and PvP along the way. If Stunlock can find a way to bring this style of game into V-Rising, then it would be perfect for making the most of all the things that make the game fun. The premise of extraction looters is brilliant, but none of the current games has combat and mechanics anywhere near the level of the quality seen in V-Rising. I really believe it would be the best way to save the game in the long term. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a comment below if you like these ideas or have any alternatives that you'd also like to see. But anyways, have a good day, and I'll see ya.